Welcome to the Otome.com podcast, your ultimate source for Otome games. I'm Moon Candy.
And I'm Lover's Lens, and today we're going to explore a visual novel that touched my soul. It's called Our Life Beginning and Always.
This game is unique in being not just a romance, but an actual journey through life itself. It's warm, nostalgic, and deeply personal. And to help us understand the magic behind it, we're joined by Katelyn Clark, the company owner, lead writer, and secondary programmer from GB Patch Games. Welcome. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. It's really cool. Like you said, I'm the person who owns GB Patch Games. I started it many years ago, and I'm the one who does most or all of the writing depending on the project. And I help with the programming, but not all of it. And I guess that's it.
You definitely have your hands full. Like, as far as I saw, this game is huge, and you definitely write a lot.
Our Life 1 did have help with other writers, so I didn't write every scene in the game, but other games our company has released, I've been the only writer, so it kind of depends.
We always like to start our podcasts with some general information about the game. So can you give us a brief summary of Our Life Beginning and Always?
Yep. Our Life Beginnings and Always is a near fully customizable visual novel where you start the game as an 8-year-old child and you play through 4 time periods called steps, leading up to adulthood where you're 23 years old. And throughout those time periods, you experience moments, which are disconnected vignettes that are memories of your life at those stages of development. And you make many choices along the way, and none of them are bad. You can do whatever you want.
So, when it comes to that entire time period, living from a small child to an adult thing, I noticed that the visual novel structure is really unique. You've got the steps and the moments acting as very clear story beats and different periods. How did you come up with that entire system, considering it isn't something many visual novels do at all?
Well, what I wanted was to come up with a structure system and a choice system that facilitated the general idea of just living in a small town and growing up in a small town and experiencing this fictional life. And I felt a very linear story just wouldn't really lean into that well. And so I was just kind of trying to come up with something that I thought would fit better with my original imagination of what I was going for.
Honestly, the whole vibe of the small seaside town and everything was communicated in a great way. Like, I definitely felt it, and I went back to my childhood years when I used to go to the Summerside with my parents. So you did a great job on that. I bet that you have some personal experience. A person can't really write that without feeling it before.
Yeah, thank you very much. I did grow up in California, like the main characters of this game.
Okay, it makes sense.
You used the same setting as your own growing up place for the game?
Not exactly. I didn't live right on the coast like they did, but I have memories of like taking trips to the coast and like seeing the towns that are right next to the beach and kind of like remembering what they were like and how kind of amazing it was that you could just walk out the front door, go down the road, and then there would be the ocean. And those were sort of memories that stuck out to me when growing up.
So you did use some personal memories in the development, of the story.
Yeah.
That is cute.
Definitely. And I just want to say that the whole amazing part of the game just doesn't stop at the story. You can literally customize everything in it. Your character, their comfort levels of physical affection, their interests, the way they look, and even how they feel about different situations. How did you manage to create so many customization options that are always kept on track?
The programming systems for all those crazy choices was not me. That was Sabrina and Shauna, programmers of the game. So I definitely appreciate having them on board to like make my strange ideas actually functional. But in terms of the script, it eventually did become very, I guess, kind of like obvious to me, where I felt like an alteration or like a reference to something needed to be based on, the system that we had. It kind of like would jump out at me when I was making something. I was like, I need to reference something here because the context of the script is this. But I didn't really keep track of it separately or plan ahead which scenes would have references to what. I just kind of was able to figure out what should happen just by remembering what types of alterations we usually have.
Wow. Like, I didn't expect this whole thing to not be planned ahead, because it's just amazing, and all of these choices actually matter. The game remembers your personality, your emotional responses, and reactions to big and small moments. How exactly, how much time did it take you to craft this system?
It definitely took a lot of time. Once they were in place, it took longer to actually do the writing, but I'd say it took months to do the back end of like preparing for all these different things.
Wow. Months?
By the way, huh?
It's obvious that it's complex. You see, like,
I mean,
every single thing.
yeah, but still, like, months is a lot of time. I don't think I've heard a game, like, a visual novel game, put this much emphasis on, like, the choice system. Usually it's a very minor sort of thing where you, like, choose, maybe there's a callback or two, and that's it. But this game takes it, like, 5 steps further.
Thank you. I did want people to feel like, they had the freedom to actually do what they wanted. So anytime we kind of came across a point where I couldn't decide, like, what would be the best option for this to happen, the solution was just, well, we can just make it a choice. And so the player can decide what's the best.
Mm-hmm. And leading into this, during the tutorial, it was, first off, that was a massive tutorial, but second off, it gave me serious vibes that, like, every single choice mattered, like, every single one, either in a small or big way. And I wanted to ask if the small choices do matter for the wider game, because, like, I was really scared to pick, and I was like, damn, these actually matter, so what do I do? I had, like, I was very scared to pick, and I wonder if my fears were warranted.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely understand that. When there's a lot of options, I also start to doubt what I should be doing here. The choices do matter. Like, in the back end, almost every choice you make does influence how Cove develops. Like, if he's warmer or more cold in his personality, disposition. And then if he takes more of an interest in, like, outdoorsy and sporty things or more indoorsy, studious things. And so in that way, pretty much everything you're doing does subtly help influence how both you and the main character grow up. But in terms of, like, a scene, sometimes all it changes is a couple lines of dialogue and then never anything else.
I see. And I do need to admit something, I know I talked a lot about the amount of choices in the game, but really is a lot, and it kept on shocking me throughout the game. I loved it, though I couldn't help but have my intrusive thoughts always win and pick, like, the dumbest and funniest options each time. I wanted to ask, who came up with the idea for all the sassier, more bold options.
That was part of something I conceptualized with the original kind of planning of this project. I've written very sassy protagonists in the past. I think that kind of humor is funny. So I wanted to try and include like a range of different options. One that's shyer and more nervous, someone that's more relaxed, and then somebody who's, bolder and more direct and kind of says stuff out of pocket.
I just wanted to mention one situation that happened to me while I was playing the game. So I think it was in step 2. You go out with Cove and his mother, and she asks you, what do you like to do with your life? And you're like, okay, and I like writing, and I like listening to music, and I like video games, and I'm also very into your son, by the way. I love that. Like, it was so cool. Very good job with that as well. Like, it's funny to see how the characters react to those kinds of direct approach.
I'm glad you appreciate that. I definitely wanted to include some options that were something players might be thinking, but usually would never have the option to actually say in a game context. Like outside the game, they're like, yeah, I'm very interested in this character I'm playing the game about. But I just thought things like that would be funny to actually let the main character say as well.
And also, you even have the option to type your own thing if, like, there's something like that type, just say something else, which is quite nice. Like, you definitely paid attention to the detail and made sure that everyone are represented. Like, it felt really good. Now I'm gonna move to some more serious aspects of the game. To me, one of the most touching stuff was the emphasis on the family. Your main character's parents have a strong presence, and there are different family dynamics at play. Why was it important to showcase family relationship as a central part of the story?
Well, I'm very lucky that I'm very close with my family. My family is the most important part of my life personally, and I'm just someone who likes stories that have strong family presences, and I wanted to make one myself, add to that list of games where you can have a very strong family bond.
That's quite interesting. I can't imagine how did you went through writing the whole divorce thing when you had a healthy family. Like, I was so mind blown when I realized that the divorce theme is so deeply explored in Cove's family. I could really relate to that, and the resulting psychological damage to young Cove, like him blaming himself for his parents' separation and so on. And his relationship with his father, Mr. Holden, evolves based on the player's choices. What was the thought process behind including the storyline?
So, I do love my family a lot, but my mom and dad had a terrible relationship and they divorced when I was a kid. So, that was also based on my own life. Although, unlike Cove, I had many siblings throughout the process to be there with me. But I could definitely imagine how much harder it would have been if I was entirely alone.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah, but that's also why I wanted ultimately for the divorce to be for the best for both of them and for the players not to hate either Cliff or Kyra.
Yeah, I actually like both of his parents. That they were nice, and even if they had some problems, it didn't feel like it was that much of a problem in a whole. Like, they didn't manage to destroy Kov's mind through this process, so it was nice. And I wanted to ask, did you face any challenges when writing these elements?
Not really. It was hard for me to be, happy with it and certain that it would come across the way I wanted to, but I knew very certainly like what I was trying to do, and it was just kind of a matter of whether or not I was pulling it off.
Okay. I know you guys have been talking about Cove for like 10 minutes now. And I know Lover's Lens absolutely loves talking about Cove.
Oh, there's a reason behind that. Like, he's amazing.
But like, I want to talk about the two moms instead. Who are absolutely adorable together. I love them like a lot. And I wanted to ask, can you tell us a little bit about their backstory? Did they adopt Lizzie and the MC? You know, like, what's the entire dynamic there?
I'm glad you like the moms. I think they're really nice characters too. They did adopt Lizzie and the MC, but back when their relationship was, before the game time, gay marriage wasn't legal in the US. And so one of the moms, Noelani, she actually adopted the kids by herself as a single woman who had, an unofficial life partner, but they weren't able to adopt the kids together as a legal couple back when that happened. And they originally met in college. They had both moved to California from different places to go to college, and that's where they met and fell in love. And then it's actually only closer to the end of the game that gay marriage becomes legal in the US, and they're able to start wearing wedding rings and being very open with the fact that they are a married couple.
Yeah, that was explored a bit later on in the story when they became adults. I really liked that representation, and I'm glad, as someone who deals with these kinds of problems myself, I always appreciate that kind of representation in the video game. When it comes to the siblings, though, the dynamic between the main character and Lizzie, it felt real, The game as a whole felt very real to me, but the dynamic between the siblings felt a bit personal. So I wanted to ask if you had like a similar dynamic with your own siblings, or when you were younger, maybe?
Well, I have a lot of siblings, and I do have an older sister. And we actually grew up in a neighborhood with like multiple other families that had multiple kids that were all similar in age to us. So sort of sibling dynamics is something I'm very familiar with. It was a big part of my life growing up. I didn't have someone as kind of funnily bratty as Lizzie, but I definitely had siblings who could be kind of spoiled or could be kind of rude and dismissive and things like that. So I just kind of used inspiration to make a character that was similar but less kind of actually frustrating than it can be to have a real sibling who doesn't treat you that well.
Yeah, when it comes to Lizzie, while she was 13 or so, when she was like going through puberty and she was really bratty and all that, you definitely managed to like piss me off through her because she was kind of annoying, but I guess that was the point, She was annoying in a siblingy way, so, you managed to do that. And what about Shiloh? Is there a reason him and Cove are like so awkward towards each other during, like step 1 or 2, when they're still kids? Or was it just the clash in their personalities that led to it?
It is definitely a very poor mixing of personalities. Cove doesn't want to meet new people, and he really doesn't want to be in situations other people arrange for him. So he met the main character on the hill just by coincidence. He didn't at the time realize that his dad had sent the MC to go looking for him. But Shiloh is very much an arranged play date with a stranger after so much has already happened, and he just wants to get away from that. He doesn't really care who Shiloh is at that point, but then once he meets Shiloh, they can't really gel because Shiloh is a people pleaser, and Cove is not. Cove is very blunt. And Cove doesn't really get along with Lizzie, and Shiloh's main priority is getting along with Lizzie. So there's just really no hope of those two kind of fitting together well.
Okay, so I've been thinking about Shiloh that he felt like part of the family. And him and Cove kind of have similar backstories. And I know that growing up without a parent and basically having the other one working all the time can be hard because the parent that stayed is constantly trying to compensate for the loss, and this could be a big trauma for a kid that can go through. And I just felt like Shiloh and Cove were kind of similar, like they have something to bond over. I don't know if was intentional, but it was like his little brother or something.
That's a really sweet way to look at it. Shiloh is actually a cameo character from a much older game of ours called XOXO Droplets. And the two having similar backstories does sort of come from the fact that they were both created by me, and there are certain things I like to do in my games. And since they were from separate games originally, they were designed separately and not as part of the same cast. But then putting them together did seem like it made sense because I decided I wanted to have a cameo from that older game in this newer game. And, I thought out of all the characters from that old game, Shiloh was one who would make the most sense. But unfortunately, Shiloh's not a very nice character, and he does not see Cove in a friendly way. He is actually very mean. He's a mean, cowardly kid who acts nice to have other people be mean to someone besides himself. But yeah.
Wow.
Okay, this didn't get to me while I was playing, and I was like, oh, poor kid, that's so unfair. Oh, I guess that makes sense now why they were so close with Lizzie. Like, she's a brat as well.
Shiloh manipulated me, I feel like, because
Yeah.
I thought him like a sweet, shy summer child, with freckles. Jesus, this manipulative backstory came a bit out of nowhere for me.
Yeah,
he grows up to be very untrustworthy.
Okay, was Shiloh a main character in your other visual novel?
Yes, he was. You could date him. And he's considered like the most divisive and least popular option. He's sort of love to hate kind of character. But he is very funny and amusing as an older teenager. But as a kid, it is more sad, the situation. And originally I did this cameo so people who only knew him as like his worst self could see, how he started and how, it was kind of like a sad, unfortunate thing that he was going through all of this and that he ended up the way he did.
Man, like, you are definitely paying attention to detail. I love that. Like, with this Easter egg thing and the backstories, and just, I am mind blown. Definitely. It's amazing.
Do you have like... is this like canon? Like, do you have like an MCU sort of thing going on with your visual novels? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I do. Actually, there's the original, which is called XOXO Droplets, and that was a game I released back in 2017, but I've always remembered it. And then Our Life was added essentially to that world, where it's like a world very similar to ours, but there's unnatural hair colors and things like that. And now the game I'm working on currently is also in that same sort of shared universe between these different games.
Wow. Okay. Look at this. We've got an MCU right under our noses. When it comes to the unnatural hair color, by the way, that is something I noticed immediately during the first step, because like the first thing that's, popped into my eyes when I saw Cove, I was like, why does this kid have green hair, right? Like an 8-year-old. So I want to, you said that it's probably natural considering there are naturally odd hair colors in the universe. But is there like a more story reason, like some sort of symbolism behind that? I noticed that his mom's also green haired. It ties in really well with the entire sea theme Cole's family goes for. Am I looking way too deep into this, or is it just a stylistic choice?
So yeah, it is natural. He was born with green hair, and so was his mom. And even the sort of blue gradient that her hair has is also natural in this world. And I just decided that I wanted to have something that kind of separated this from the 100% real world, especially when I was making the first game in this universe, because that game is full of very over-the-top personalities that are intentionally kind of like comedic and unserious and not entirely realistic. But then when making this more grounded game, I still wanted to keep a sort of more, I guess, kind of based sort of on the concept rather than the reality. It's almost, an idealized version of what a summer vacation as a kid is. And so sort of going with these unnatural colors that really fit the theme just kind of added to this concept of like the perfect kind of unobtainable experience of growing up.
Did you, when you developed the first game of this entire multiverse you've got going on, did you actually like imagine making it into a multiverse, or did it just like pop into your head as a spur of the moment thought while developing Our Life?
So I originally didn't know that it would be a multiple universe thing, but when I decided for sure that I was going to make Our Life, I knew that since I already had this modern day, basically real world setting with this older game, that I did want the two to be connected. I didn't want to act like, one didn't happen in this world despite the settings being basically the same.
I just want to mention, because we're drifting away from Cove, and Moon Candy already called me out on being very interested in him. I just want to mention that I loved his hair color. It made his hair look very, very soft. And all of these CGs that he's coming to your window with this green hair and this green eye, and there's a sunset behind, just melted my heart away. Just wanted to tell you that.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's a bit of a Cove simp. You might have noticed that.
Well, I appreciate that.
So, actually, speaking of unnatural hair colors, while I was playing the game, I did meet up with Jeremy, and I might have gone overboard in sassing him off. I lunged at him during one of the options. So, and though at the time it was like very funny to look at, I later realized through a bit of text that I might have ended up locking myself out of his route and like a bit of backstory. So, do you have any words on Jeremy? Like, is his backstory explored anyway beyond just being a pissy kid? Is there more to him than meets the eye?
Yes, there is a lot more to him. He is, like Shiloh, a cameo from XOXO Droplets. And unlike Shiloh, Jeremy is in fact the most popular character from that series. And he grows up to be a very mopey, sad sack, kind of spineless, sarcastic kind of guy. And so it's kind of a joke within that fandom that he started out as this very hostile, bratty boy, and then grows up to be quite different. In this game, no behavior you do, especially in step 2, will improve Jeremy's attitude towards you, but if your main character absolutely hates him, then they will avoid him a little more, so you will miss out on just a little bit more content with him. But there's no way to get him to act nice in step 2. If you're nice, he thinks you're an idiot, and it's uncomfortable, and if you're mean, he thinks you're an idiot and unreasonable.
Yeah, I kind of had fun over his bulkhead after he picked on Cove. Like, it made me mad. Like, are you assaulting my men right now? Fuck off. I'm kind of sad that there's no way to make him nice in a way, but I guess it's just his personality as a kid. And as a whole, you can see that I really, really enjoy this game. It's just so adorable, and it makes me feel good. And I think that one of the most amazing things is the fact that you can explore in detail the process of going through childhood to adulthood. You see all the characters mature, but also feel the weight of responsibility and choices that come with adulthood. How did you approach writing the shift from carefree summers to more serious life moments?
So, whenever I would go from like one kind of mood to another, it would take me like a little bit to get in that mindset. But the fact that the moments and steps are separated and it's not linear did make it a lot easier, because I can focus entirely just on the concept for this one moment or this opening for a new time period. And it can be any kind of situation. I can design everything to sort of suit what kind of mood I'm going for, whether it is an all fun kind of scene or whether it becomes a more serious one. And I just had a lot of flexibility to set things up in an ideal way to be able to broach the more serious moments. And so that did help a lot.
Yeah, I never thought about this whole moment and step system, but now when you said it, I must say that it's very clever. Like, this is a very, very clever way to keep stuff under control and to manage to deliver exactly the emotions you want to deliver to the player. Like, it's very well thought. Good job.
Thank you.
What's the time period of the game? Because you mentioned like the time period, but I remember Lee, your cousin or sibling, she was on the phone and she mentioned like the cell phone as it was something very novel. And also we've got the red wedding ring situation, and I was just curious.
Yeah, so the game starts in 2026. No, 2026, not 2026. So 2006, and then it ends in 2021. So step 2 would be 2011. So it was just about that time when everybody had started getting cell phones, but kids who were younger usually didn't have them yet.
Yeah, I remember that time. My parents used to buy me cell phones from another country because we didn't have them in my country.
Oh, why?
And I still remember, like, we had cell phones, but they were like not pretty at all. Like this old Nokia or Siemens, like the heavy brick type of phone.
Speak for yourself. I love the old phones. I love Nokias.
I remember my first phone, like real phone. Like the first one I had was a Siemens with a Tasmanian devil on it. Like my father gave it when I was first grade. But then my mother bought me how it's called, this clam kind of cell phone. And it was a hit. Like, all of the kids in the school were like, wow, this is some kind of a magic. Where did you get this from? We used to send MP3s and everything. Oh, back in the old days. Like, this was a memory chip for me as well. The whole thing with the cell phones. And as it seems, you have a lot of passion for visual novels. And you have a lot of knowledge. And this is a personal question, but do you play a lot of visual novels yourself?
Yeah, I do. I play a lot of visual novels. I have since, 2010. It's been 15 years, and it's, one of the genres I play the most.
Okay, that explains everything. would you mind sharing with us your favorite visual novel?
Oh no, I can't pick one favorite. I have so many that I like.
Okay, treat it as a recommendation then. Like, recommend me a game that you like.
Do you play scarier games, or do you not like games with more upsetting content? My favorite genre is
Yes.
actually horror, so I play a lot of scary games.
Wow, that's quite interesting considering the game you actually wrote that it's entirely feel good. Yes, I like horror. I like unsettling stuff, but as you can see, I like cutesy stuff as well, so I don't mind either.
Well, I'd say a game that I played recently that I thought was really standout and interesting. It's called Ghostopia Season 1. It's on Steam and Switch.
Okay. Thank you for the recommendation. I will try it out.
Yeah, and that was more like comedy horror, but does have violence.
Okay. That's interesting. Comedy horror is something that I haven't played. Oh, it would be interesting. And while we are talking about games, I will get back to our life and I will talk again about the coward palette and the whole game. Like, it's a great decision. It really helps create that cozy and nostalgic atmosphere. And I just wanted to ask you, what was the inspiration behind the art style and how did you develop the look of the characters and backgrounds?
So, I definitely wanted the look of the game to be really on theme for the concept of a nostalgic summer. But back when this game started, the company was a lot smaller. I wasn't being able to do it full time, and I couldn't really just put up an application and have tons of people fill it out and be interested in working on the project. So what really happened is I just was on a visual novel forum, and I just would look at the artists who were available on that forum, and I just sort of waited for an artist to come along with open commissions that I thought, yeah, that has what I'm looking for. And then I reached out to them and I was like, hey, do you want to work on this visual novel with me? And then they said yes. So that's how it happened.
So you hired people by going on forums and asking them.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we didn't as an already established team design and art style together. It was just sort of bits and pieces coming together based on who I happened to find, and who was available. But I was able to find people that I thought was perfect for the project.
Do you still work with those people? Like, are you a team now? When things are bigger?
Yeah, so what I've always done with all of my projects is I work with people for that project, so that every project has a specific look, and then after that project is over, they move on and work with other people. I still know those artists, I still follow their social media, but they're not working with me, they're working with other teams and making more cool visual novels, or just doing personal commissions and things like that.
Okay, that's a nice approach, I understand.
I have another question. Considering you said that you scoured the forums for people to help you out, did you hire another writer, or are you the sole writer of the game?
I am the lead writer, and basically what happens is every scene in the game was drafted by me, where I wrote out this is what happens, these are the choices, and these are the options on the choices. But when it comes to writing the actual prose, I did most of that, but there were other writers who came on and would take my drafts and turn them into proper scripts. But the whole story was all my idea, all the moments were what I thought they should be, but I definitely did not do all of the writing part.
Well, let me tell you this: whoever helped you write, definitely deserves a raise, because I was very emotionally invested in the game, like unnaturally so. For example, I did the very manly thing of crying when it gave me the option to, give the orange shell to Cove when you both were like 18 or so, more into adulthood. That moment was very touching for me, and I want to ask, how did you and your, I guess, helping writers collaborate together to craft these incredibly emotional moments?
Well, I'm really glad that the scene was emotional for you. I guess I just know personally what I think would be really sentimental and nostalgic, and I just didn't shy away from that when creating this game. Like, I definitely had to go into creating our life knowing, like, you can't, like, be embarrassed that it's, like, emotional and sentimental. You've got to be, like, as genuine and earnest with, the feelings you actually have about these concepts, and just hope that other people also feel that way and don't think it's, silly. And so it was just being, as kind of earnest as possible, and the fact that, me and a lot of people on the team just are kind of sentimental, nostalgic people.
So you mentioned that you're sentimental and nostalgic and everything, like very emotional. And in our conversation by far, we can admit that this game doesn't feel like a traditional Otome visual novel. It has a lot of slice of life qualities mixed in with the occasional romantic interactions. And I just wondered, why did you go with this mixed genre approaching instead of sticking to the more traditional Otome? Like, is it because of this sentimental part of you that calls from the inside?
Well, I personally am not actually a romantic person. So I had to really, that one was more of a challenge. Like, the games I've made in the past are not actually romantic either, but even less so. This was like my first attempt at trying to do something earnestly romantic. I care most about family and friends, and I wanted that in my story. But I also thought, romance is a very important aspect of a lot of people's lives, and I wanted to do that right as well. But that just isn't personally my priority when making a story.
I believe that the fact that you pay so much attention to the character dynamics and families and backstories actually helps a lot to create the whole romantic feeling of the game, because you know a lot more about the characters and you know what every step means to them, like where every action comes from, like it comes from their soul. And even though it was your first romantic story, it didn't feel like that. Like it felt very carefully thought, every romantic moment that happened. So good job on that. I loved it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, to be honest, when it comes to this being your first romantic in air quotes VN experience, I personally believe that the fact you didn't focus on romance first, but put it as sort of like only a plot point instead of like the main plot, really helped you in terms of the story. Because I'm confessing this, I read VNs like a book without much thought. I skim over, the text goes over my eyes, I click and spam, and that kind of stuff. But our life, it made me feel like I was actually living a different life. Like I was incredibly invested in the story. And I believe a part of that is because you had so much world and character building rather than just look at these 5 hot guys, choose one and date them. And I wanted to ask if this kind of almost roleplay-esque type of immersion was one of your main goals during development.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you felt immersed. That was definitely a big hope that people would feel like they were just, when they turned on the game, they were just going to hang out in the town of Sunset Bird for a little while. And, they just do what they feel like. They'd play the moments that stood out to them, and they'd say the things that they wanted to say, and they'd just be able to relax.
Honestly, when I started playing the game, I was having a really bad day. Like, really bad day. I was very anxious over just some everyday stuff and I was nervous. And generally, I was like, oh, God, how am I going to tackle all of these problems that I have? But after I started playing the game, everything just calmed down. It instantly immersed myself and I started feeling good. So it's a mission complete, I guess, because not a lot of games can accomplish that. Like I'm very nervous as a person, so the fact that you managed to get me out of this is a big thing.
Well, I'm so glad that the game was able to bring you some comfort. I really hoped that it would be able to do that. So thank you for letting me know.
No, I thank you for creating this amazing experience. And you mentioned the moments, like the fact that people can choose which moment to play. So I noticed the base game is completely free, which is quite amazing because there's a lot of content that is actually free. But there are also the DLCs. Can you tell us a bit about them and what they add to the experience?
Yeah. So there are two different types of DLCs. I guess 2.5 types. There's the step-based DLCs that just give you even more moments for whatever time period it is. And they're similar to the base game moments, but they have stuff that I didn't feel was like as core. It's more like expanding on what you already know rather than like the basic experiences and understandings of the characters that I wanted to be in the free version. But like if you really like them and you want to know even more and do even more things, then the step DLCs allow you to do that. Then there is the Cove wedding DLC, which lets you have a wedding during step 4. Instead of more moments, you get to just plan a wedding and get married to Cove. And then the other type of DLCs are side story DLCs, where you do unlock more moments, but it's not about Cove. It's about other characters, specifically Derek Suarez and Baxter Ward.
Oh man, like a wedding DLC? This is a dream come true for a lot of people to be able to plan a wedding, to choose the flowers, to choose the perfect dress. Like this is so nice. It's amazing. And again, we're talking about the level of customization of this game. Like the fact that you even can customize your own room. And now you can plan your wedding. Like, you definitely think about everything.
The game lives up to its name, let me tell you. It definitely is our life. So, when it comes to the DLCs, actually, I noticed that most of Baxter's CG in the gallery is locked behind it, and he was introduced pretty late into the game, and he wasn't explored in the main steps, apart from coming off as an odd dude on an ego trip. He's a bit charismatic, but he does get a bit better during the volleyball sequence. But still, I felt like there was not a lot of base Baxter content, so I wanted to know a bit more about his backstory and why he is the way he is.
Yeah, Baxter, he's a bit of an interesting guy. He is one of the DLC side stories. So the game does go into a lot of detail about him and his life, but in the base game it was trickier because, unlike Derek, who is Cove's friend and so can more naturally just be hanging around, Cove doesn't like Baxter, and Baxter's got kind of a strange, elusive personality intentionally. So you definitely have to be curious enough to get the DLC to really learn more about him. But it's just kind of an unfortunate thing that he couldn't be involved in the base game more because of his dynamic with Cove and overall personality.
Is he also part of the MCU thing you have going on, or is he like an original character to our life?
He was created for our life, but he actually did become a cameo character in my current game.
Okay, so he is getting involved in that entire
Yep,
multiversal thing.
Yep. So you can play at least that base game to
Hmm.
learn more about him.
You know, considering our life, I might actually check out the other games. You know, I loved your writing, and I also love the characters in the game a ton. I think I've said many times, the character building was amazing, and I was incredibly invested. So it's shocked me, you know, after playing the game, you know, I had a sort of like subconscious retrospective over the characters. I wanted to know, how did you give them so much personality through through just like writing, you know, through just text?
Well, thank you so much. I'm kind of a flaws forward kind of person in that I like to be very upfront with ways in which the characters are not perfect. And then you can start to see ways in which they're still nice and endearing, but usually characters are not initially given positive introductions. There are some exceptions, but a lot of the characters, they don't come across so great, but it's in a way that's interesting or that's funny, and that kind of sets you up to be more accepting of when they are actually nice rather than like a stranger coming up and like immediately being very nice to you. That's something I generally avoid. Like, the first person you meet is Cliff, and you know, she's a total disaster and that scene is terrible, but that's what makes it like interesting and funny, you know, when you're first getting to know these people.
So here's a very important question. For those who haven't played Our Life multiple times already, what's next? Any further expansions or projects you can tease on?
Unfortunately, there are no more expansions planned for Our Life Beginnings and Always with Cove. As much as I love that game, I did have to stop writing it and go do something else. But the current game I'm working on is Our Life Now and Forever.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
we've got another life going on now.
Yep. And so that game is based on the season of autumn instead of summer, and there are 2 neighbors you grow up with instead of 1.
Ooh.
But it's still got the same concept of you start as a kid and you go to an adult, and then there are the moments, and it's super based on like customization and role playing.
Are you gonna have like a love triangle sort of thing going on there?
Well, you can have a crush on both, and there
Ooh.
is a system where you choose the kind of dynamic you have with the leads. And one of the options once you're older is to have jealousy as an optional dynamic. So you can add that kind of drama, but it's entirely optional if you don't like that kind of tension.
So you definitely make good life simulations in these games. Like, it totally feels like real life. Like, amazing. This just great. I love this. Keep doing that. Like, this genre needs that. It needs the real thing, not only the perfect romance life, which is not bad anyways, but still sometimes you like projects like this make you reflect on your own personal experience in life and make you relive past traumas, for example, something that happened before time. So you're doing a very important job. I just want you to know it.
Thank you so much.
And before we wrap up, I've got one final question for you. If someone hasn't played Our Life yet, what's like the one thing you'd say to convince them? You've got like 1 sentence stops. What would you say?
I'd say that it's a game that allows you to choose exactly how your relationship with the lead character develops. If you don't like each other, if you're friends, if you have an instant crush, you get to decide all that for yourself for the entire game. And I think that makes it a very approachable experience, because if you're not sure about the character, you don't have to like him. But if you think he's super cute, well, then you can think that right away.
Thank you, Katelyn. And that's it for today's episode. If you haven't played Our Life Beginning and Always, go fix that immediately. It's totally worth it.
And thank you from me as well, Katelyn, for sharing a bit behind this life-changing game. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in.
And until next time, and don't forget to enjoy the small moments in life. Bye, everyone.